let's do a little Premier League roundup during this international break. But before we get started, make sure that you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. The channel has grown a lot in this last month, and I want to thank you guys for all the support, all of your kind messages. You guys are really enjoying these shorter form videos, and I'm actually loving making them for you guys. But I just wanted to say thank you because I do really appreciate it. I think there's also something called like hyping the video. I really don't know what that's all about, but hype the video if you can. But what I really love is when you guys get into the comments and we can continue the discussion there. So make sure you guys drop a comment at the end. We're going to cover quite a few teams, quite a few subjects. And so, yeah, I would love to discuss those with you in the comment section. Without further ado, let's get started. Now, I did not talk a lot about Chelsea after they beat Liverpool, but I do think it would be a little shady of me not to, right? Because I kind of gave them a little bit of credit and then just moved on. We don't want them feeling so good about themselves, do we? You know, because when Chelsea start feeling good about themselves, they get a little loud. But I do want to say that I feel like, you know, the main topic of conversation obviously was Liverpool because they lost 3 on the bounce and they were poor during that game, right? But I do think Chelsea, like I said in my post-match review, I think that they deserve a lot of credit for that. It wasn't just Liverpool were bad. It was Chelsea were actually really good. That's probably their best performance of the season. And they had a lot of their key players missing. No Delap, no Palmer. Who else was missing? Center back pairing, no Fofana, no Colwill. They're missing quite a few of their, like, if you had to pick out their starting 11, if everybody was fit, quite a few of those players were not there. And I think Maresca did a really good job with his tactical setup to make it really difficult on Liverpool. I thought their press was really good. And I thought the body language and the enthusiasm and the mentality of their team was really, really positive. In a moment where if they had lost, we'd be having conversations about them, they really stood up to be counted, where I thought Liverpool looked quite frail. And so I think Chelsea looked really good. That's how they should look, even without their main players. Now, I think the next thing for Chelsea moving forward in their next games, and I'll check what their next games are, but I think with Chelsea, it's still a matter of, you know, what are they going to be like managing multiple games a week, especially with injuries? Their Club World Cup, you know, campaign is catching up with them probably. They're getting some injuries that I'm sure they expected to get, but I don't think their team is as deep as it needs to be to deal with some of these injuries, right? So their next game is Nottingham Forest away, and then they have Ajax in the Champions League at home, and then they have Sunderland. If Chelsea have truly turned a corner, I feel like they should win all 3 of those games. Nottingham Forest, we're going to get to them. We're getting to Ange, trust and believe that. But they should be beating them away from home. They should be beating Ajax at home in the Champions League, and they should be beating Sunderland at home. That should be 3 wins on the bounce if they have truly turned a corner. They should be getting some of their players back. I love Romeo Lavia. The fact that he's back for them, I think, is really important because he gives them another high-quality option in midfield, where I think sometimes it's a little odd for them because they have to put James in midfield, or you know, they have an imbalance in midfield trying to utilize other players there. And sometimes Enzo Fernandez is not, to me, somebody that needs to be starting every single game. What happened there? I think Enzo Fernandez is the type of player that you'd want the option to start or not. And I think once Romeo Lavia becomes available and whenever Cole Palmer comes back, then you have those options available to you. To me, this is probably not a popular opinion, but I think Romeo Lavia is their best midfielder. He's just never fit. So it's a matter of, can they keep him fit? This means that you can utilize Reece James where he needs to be and play him next to Caicedo, so Caicedo doesn't have so much of, he has such a major role in this team to be progressive, to, you know, be good from the base of midfield in terms of building up and also breaking up play. Once you put Romeo Lavia in there, Caicedo's job becomes a lot easier. And so because I don't necessarily feel like Enzo Fernandez makes Caicedo's job easier. I think he actually makes it harder because he just doesn't offer enough outside of the odd, like, nice pass and then also some of his, like, box crashing. So I think getting Romeo Lavia back is going to be important for them, especially in a moment where they don't have all of their best players available to them. And we'll see how they go moving forward. But I feel like if Chelsea have truly turned a corner, and if they need to have the next 3 games need to be almost like robotic, easy wins. If they're struggling, they get another red card, show a little bit of that immaturity or whatever you want to call it. That I think Maresca will still be kind of, I think Chelsea fans will still be asking questions. But I think for the most part, they can use this Liverpool performance more than the result, but the actual performance and the tactical setup and their attitude towards the game as a platform to move them forward in their next couple of games. Speaking of Nottingham Forest, because I just mentioned them before, I know this sounds so bad because I know Ange is probably like right on the cusp of losing his job. But one of the things that used to make me sick about him was the fact that they treated him like Santa Claus, and everybody just like, he was so nice and everybody was kind of like kissing his ass all the time. And they were very reluctant to criticize him for very obvious flaws because he was playing entertaining football. And he came into Nottingham Forest, and I don't think there was anywhere near enough criticism for Nottingham Forest sacking Nuno, because they didn't need to sack Nuno. I know that him and Edu did not get along and, took Edu's side, but I feel like that was a huge mistake because Ange hasn't won a game since he's been at the helm, has he? Nottingham Forest have been so poor since Ange has come in. And right before Nuno and Edu fell out, I think that Nottingham Forest were actually playing really good. But then all of a sudden, the negativity between Nuno and Edu and the ownership came about, and then they collapsed, and they just have not gotten a grip since then. Also changing the manager from a more pragmatic, maybe a little bit more, I wouldn't say Nuno is like negative, but he's definitely somebody that prefers he has a tighter approach to things. He'll sit in and wait his turn and counter. And it's just open the doors. He's just open the doors and let it happen. And I think they're really struggling to switch over to Ange's play. This is projection. I'm just looking at the body language. But from the moment the negativity around Nuno happened, I really do think the players, it was obvious with their body language that they were unhappy with the decision being made, because Nuno was basically a dead man walking from the moment that Athletic article came out saying that him and Edu were not getting along. The transfer window was still open then, by the way. So it was still like September when that happened. It was so early on in the season. And you can see, I feel like the players reacted to it, and they're just not interested in whatever this Ange thing is, because Nuno did such a good job with them. He got them to, in Europe, they were so entertaining to watch. Morgan Gibbs-White and Wood and Alanga and Callum Hudson-Odoi. That was a fun team to watch. And it just seems like this Ange move has zapped all of the energy and excitement out of this team. And I really think they made a big mistake sacking Nuno, right? Now, with Ange, I know that he won the Europa League with Tottenham, but let's be so real. That was a really bad final. Both teams should have been able to lose that game. It wasn't that Ange outcoached Amorim or anything like that. It was just one team just nicked a goal. I'm really not going to be hearing all this. Yeah, but Ange won a trophy. I don't want to hear that. He had Tottenham in like 17th place. It was really poor. But he got some weird, he's so jolly and I just love him and ha 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 ha. He's just so fun and so cool and I'm like, but can he coach? What is this love fest we're getting for Ange? We're so happy he's back in the Prem. Why? He had Tottenham in 17th. Why are you so like giddy for him to be back? It was so weird. Ange, let me be honest here. I feel like what really set me off with Ange early on was people actually having the audacity to write articles saying that he was going to be Tottenham's Arsene Wenger. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? You are so disrespectful. And so from that moment on, I was just kind of like waiting on his downfall. And, the skulking around the corner, it's just like, I'm waiting on your downfall. I'll be here when you fall. And it literally happened. And I'm just like, damn, they're just welcoming him back like he didn't have Tottenham in 17. Like, where they do that at? Nottingham Forest are in a very bad period. And I do envision Ange getting sacked in about 5 minutes, so hopefully they are able to hire a new manager that is more like Nuno, which suits their players and their style, because they have, fast players up front. They have interesting players that, can play on the counterattack, that are really good at playing like direct, quick football and being very hard to break down. They need a manager that can relay that style. But you couldn't find any managers that were on a completely like Ange, Nuno. It couldn't have been any different, so hopefully they can figure that out. But the notion of backing Edu over the manager couldn't be my club. We need to talk about Bournemouth. And in particular, we need to talk about Antoine Semenyo. I know you guys have been waiting on me to say this, and I've already said it in one live, but I'll say it again. I was wrong about Semenyo last season. I was wrong about Semenyo. I was not super excited about the player just because I felt like Bournemouth were going through a little bit of a period where everything about them was going right and all their players looked good all of a sudden, in that we needed to have a bigger sample size. And he looked like, to me, one of those, because their quoted price was like 70 million. And I was like, 70 million for Semenyo? I didn't see it. I didn't see the vision. I know a lot of you guys saw the vision. If you saw the vision, get into the comment section and tell me I saw the vision. But I didn't see it. But this season, he's even better somehow, Semenyo. And I mean, he has a rocket on him. He has a rocket. He can score free kicks. He's pretty much, I feel like, the leader in that team from the perspective of getting their attack going, the attacking leader, somebody that's going to be, he's the one that's going to start the attacks. He's the one that's going to get the assist. He's the one that's going to take the shot. He seems like kind of a focal point or a pillar of their attacking group, right? And he is thriving in that role. He looks really good, like I've seen Man United fans talking about him. I've seen Chelsea fans talking about him, but I want to warn you that if you don't know, he is a gunner. And you know what happens when you try to get a gunner, and Arsenal are also at the table, right? He's spoken a lot about being an Arsenal fan, and we have been lightly linked to him. I don't really want to get too far into transfer conversations because literally the transfer window is over and it won't open back up until January. But this is a player that I feel like would fit in very nicely on that left-hand side. I know for Arsenal, I know that, Eze has played a little bit there and we still have Martinelli and Trossard, but it still feels like there's room for a true left winger or a winger on that side. And why not? And Eze is also playing in midfield for us. So there's space. There's definitely space there. Now, Manchester United want to make him into a wing back, please. Enough. We don't want to turn good wingers into wing backs. You guys are doing enough. You've done enough with Ahmad. You've ruined enough talent at this point. Stay away. And I'm seeing some Chelsea fans saying that this is the player that we should be getting, but you got Gittins. You're fine. And you have Gittins. You don't need anything else. But Semenyo looks every bit of the, 60, 70 million pound winger. And, he's pretty young. I'm going to check his age right now, but I feel like he's like 25, Ghanaian international, right? 25 years old, Capricorn. We love those because your girl is a Capricorn. And right now he has 6 goals and 3 assists. You could say that he's the best winger in the Prem right now, right? I'm trying to think who's actually performing better than him right now. I can't really think of anybody. I know some people are probably like, kudos, but no, Semenyo. And he's already, he had 11 goals and 5 assists last season, but he looks well on track to, best that, So Semenyo, I was wrong. I was definitely wrong. And, it's hurting my little pride here, that I have to say that, but you definitely are much better than what I thought you were going to be. Now, Bournemouth is doing so well. And I think there's been a lot of conversation about Crystal Palace. We'll talk about them in a little bit. And Oliver Glasner. You guys know how I feel about Oliver Glasner. Real men. But I also think Iriola. Real men. He lost his whole back line, by the way. He lost Kepa. He lost Kirkes. He lost Hoyson. He lost the other guy who went to PSG. he lost. He lost lots, and it has Bournemouth in fourth, performing so well. They played quite a few difficult games early on in the season. They played Liverpool away. They also played Tottenham. They beat Tottenham, and we all watched that game against Liverpool. They were in that game for real. It ended up 4-2, but they were in that game, you know? And so he has them sitting there 1 point behind Liverpool, 2 points behind Arsenal, sitting level on points with Tottenham. And I'm just like, I said this last season, that I think Areola is a Champions League level manager, meaning that he is somebody that I could see managing like a Bayer Leverkusen and doing just fine, right? When Xabi Alonso left, I was like, Bayer Leverkusen should go there, but they went for Eric Ten Hag, and you see how good that went. You know, you should probably be listening to me. But yeah, I think Areola, yeah, real man. You know, he's doing a really, really good job. He's lost and has still been able to keep them playing at a good level. And Bournemouth are one of the most exciting teams in the league right now. You know, so well done them. And I'm interested to see how the season pans out for them. I think, you know, they'll be aiming for European spots and, you know, maybe not fall away as much like they did at the back end of last season. But Bournemouth, I like what I'm saying. Okay, now I want to mention Everton. Everton stopped Crystal Palace's unbeaten streak this past weekend. They beat Crystal Palace by 2-1, and Jack Grealish scored the goal. Jack Grealish has 4 assists and 1 goal so far in the Premier League. Very odd that he didn't make the England squad, but I'm not English. It's not my business. I'll stay out of it. But no more unbeaten streak for Crystal Palace, but it ended at 19, which is outrageous and is like a record. I think it was like since 1956 or something like that. They've had an unbeaten record that long. So well done them. That game was actually a really good game. I thought that was a fun game. I'm somebody that does like to watch the random games in the Premier League, the Fulham versus Bournemouth, the Everton versus Crystal Palace. Those are games that I actually really enjoy because sometimes you just get to see good players do things. Like there are good players that play on teams outside of the big six. And also it ain't got nothing to do with Arsenal. So I could just watch without any sort of like, it doesn't mean anything. Everton won, doesn't matter. Doesn't have anything to do with me, right? But 2 things. I think that, you know, David Moyes is a manager that deserves a lot of respect. He's been at Everton before, back at Everton, did a lot for West Ham. And I think he was a little bit disrespected at the end by West Ham. So I'm happy that he's back, you know, at his own old stomping grounds at Everton doing his thing. And I think he's doing pretty well with Everton. Let's check where they are in the table. So Everton sit 8th right now, and they have 3 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses. That's good. Everton are usually right now talking about whether or not they're going to survive. I follow a couple of Everton fans on Twitter, and right about this time, they're already talking about whether or not they're going to stay up. And they're not having those conversations. I think their new stadium is beautiful, and I think that they have a beautiful group of attackers to go along with it. Grealish, Barry, Dibbling, and Jai. That is a cinema front line if I've ever seen one. It's going to be a Barclays type of front line, if you know what I mean. And I'm really excited to see how they develop together and how good they get once they get to know each other a lot more. I think Grealish's authority and his ability to create and his experience is going to be so good for that front line to gel. And you can already see the early signs of that. So I'm happy for David Moyes. I really like what I'm seeing from their front line. But Jack Grealish did his interview after the game and was talking about, you know, that he was happy that he scored his goal and he saw that he was going to get the player of the game award, but player of the match award, excuse me. But he felt like it should go to Wharton. He would solve Liverpool's problems. I hate to say it. As much Adam Wharton, when he goes to another Premier League side, it will kill me. But I just think he's quality. He was by far the best player on the pitch the other day for Crystal Palace. Even though they lost, he just oozes quality, you guys. Like, and this is no offense. I am an American watching the Premier League. I know you guys are not going to like me saying this, but he just doesn't feel like a typical English midfielder. I know I said it, but he just doesn't. You know, he has a different skill set that most I feel like the types of midfielders that England tends to develop, he has something different. He does have a Spanish feel to him. He is somebody that I think could play in Spain. You know, if you said Adam Wharton actually developed his game at La Masia, I don't think you would look at it and say that it was sounded crazy, would you? He's so good. He would solve a lot of Liverpool's problems. I think that where Gravenberch has a lot of great qualities, but they need to find balance in their midfield. They need a passer. Losing Trent Alexander-Arnold and these last couple of games, I think, has shown them that if McAllister is not playing well, they don't have a really good passer in there. And so adding Adam Wharton to a Gravenberch, moving Gravenberch out of the 6th position, or having them do like a dual number 6, but like one is more of like the ball progressor and the other one is more of the passer, and then just playing Wirtz. I solved it for you, Arne. I solved it for you just like that. It'll cost your salary, of course. You know, I would like that in USD, but I've solved your problem. The only thing about that problem is it's going to cost you about 100 million to solve. You know, you're going to have to go buy Adam Wharton. But I think there's quite a few teams that could use Adam Wharton. Quite a few teams. He is so slick on the ball. He picks the right pass. He doesn't always pick the obvious pass. He has great vision. He's next up. He's next up. He's next up. He's so good. But I'm glad that Grealish said it, because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, but Wharton was so good, wasn't he, in that game? And he said it. And not to get in y'all's business again, but I still think that the best midfield combination that England could put together is Rice and Wharton. Now, I like Elliot Anderson, and he's done well as well with Declan. But I think if you want to max it out, it's Wharton and Rice. I mean, when we talk about balance, we're talking about balance there. But listen, he's still very young. And the key for Wharton right now is to maintain his fitness. He's missed a lot of football since he's been at Crystal Palace through injury. So he has to maintain his fitness. Crystal Palace are playing more games than they've ever played before because they're in Europe and in the Premier League. They're playing on multiple fronts. So I just wonder how they're going to manage him, make sure that he maintains his fitness. But boy, that's a 100 million pound midfielder. Let me know what you guys think about Wharton in the chat. I know there's been a lot of Baliba or Wharton. It's Wharton, because when you actually watch Wharton, you like Wharton. When you watch clips of Baliba, you like Baliba, but when you're really watching him, you're like, yeah, no, I'm just joking. But seriously, it's Wharton at the end of the day. Now, sad news, obviously, for Arsenal and the Odegaard Defense League, which is me. But he has had a MCL injury and is going to keep him out probably for a while. It's so unlucky that he's just come back from injury and he's back out again. His injuries are quite unlucky because most of them, actually all 3 of them, both shoulders and the knee, have all been contact and not necessarily him just running and pulling up. And so it's definitely unlucky. Odegaard has been really reliable fitness-wise for Arsenal for a while now. So I'm not really, at some point, the roosters come to roost or whatever it is, it's players will be out that you're not used to seeing out. But I do think that Arsenal have a deep enough squad and enough talent to paper over that crack. We did really well with Saka out. We did well with Odegaard out for the shoulder, with Ethan, and, even with Saliba out with Mascara. So we have enough to paper over that crack, but it's just unfortunate just because it did feel like he was coming into form, and he was the main person that I felt like was getting the ball to Gyökeres in good position. So we'll see how Arteta deals with it. I hate that he's out. Hopefully he gets well soon and it's not that long of an injury, but he is kind of on that long list of players now in Nketiah who should be back after international break. Havertz, Jesus, Madueke, and now Odegaard. So wishing him the best, but we move. I want to go back to one thing, though, that I didn't mention in the Chelsea section, but I want to mention it now. The Maresca red card for celebrating is a direct consequence of this league and its fans crucifying people for celebrating. I thought instantly about Maresca running down that touchline because I remember when Arteta did it when we played against Liverpool 2 seasons ago, and he was absolutely crucified by the media. This league has a very odd relationship with fun and smiling and laughing and celebrating. The celebration police are always out there, and I feel like there is a level of like policing it to the stage where like now the refs are actually policing just a natural reaction to a last minute winner against the champions at home. Are you okay? Now, people obviously only really care because it's Chelsea. They didn't care when it was Arteta. In fact, a lot of Chelsea fans talk shit about Arteta. You're celebrating, you haven't won, and it's nothing, and da 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 da. But as a football collective like fans, we need to call this shit out because it's lame. It is whack. It is the worst. It is putrid. It smells like crap. I'm so sorry, but this whole element of like celebrating is not allowed. It's dark. Maresca couldn't even be a part of the press conference because he got sent off. Couldn't even talk about the win, his masterclass. He couldn't even get an opportunity to do it because the ref sat up there and gave him a red card for celebrating. But to me, this is a direct consequence of people in the media that talk about this league, crucifying people for doing other people's celebrations, running up and down the touchline, celebrating because they won a game. You know, it's the constant policing of fun in this league. It makes it hard to watch at times. It makes it hard to watch sometimes. Can we laugh? Can we smile? Can you celebrate a late winner without being sent off? I just wanted to put that out there because I do feel like, you know, it's really unfortunate that that was the result of a last minute winner is you get sent off, and I just don't get it. But this league in particular hates fun, and it's time to get an entire grip because that's ridiculous. So yeah, that was my last thing. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you guys think about everything that I talked about on here. A World Football Roundup will be coming up next. So make sure you guys support that as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.